Hey, good morning everyone. Happy Sunday, happy week. I guess the week officially starts today, so first video of the week. Maybe I'm the first, I don't know. Alright, got once again some vinyl that I've listened to this week, some of the new things that I've picked up over the past few weeks, and a couple other little things. But let's begin. Actually, what you hear in the background right now is the SF Jazz Collective. San Francisco Jazz Collective. I saw these guys in Detroit this winter, and they did actually a homage to Miles Davis. They were nice enough to give me some autographs on this thing. Fun jazz, relaxing, you know, they not avant-garde, just very enjoyable. So it was a nice concert. T-shirt, that, got another CD, so there you go. That's what we're playing today. Let's begin with an Aretha Franklin story, since she passed, but I actually do have an Aretha Franklin story. I never met her in person, but I was a behind-the-scenes player here. For many years, actually 35 years, I worked for a company called Kmart Corporation. For those around the world, you may not know it. So it's a large retailer that's dying. It's not doing well. But 35 years, I worked for them, and I was regional director of operations in the Upper Midwest back in the early, you know, actually this decade. And I had this call one day, and it's from a store down in Detroit. Detroit was part of my area. And they go, you know, Steve, we got a problem. I go, what? Aretha Franklin's mad. What? Aretha Franklin's mad. You know, I'm getting this call. Aretha Franklin's mad. And, well, we don't carry her pantyhose, and she's not happy about it. Okay. Not the kind of call you normally get. We don't carry Aretha Franklin's pantyhose. You see, Aretha Franklin, she shops a Kmart store. It's called a Super K, and was on 8 Mile in Detroit. For those of you who know Detroit, or you know Eminem did the movie 8 Mile. This is where the Kmart was. Now, it wasn't in quite as bad of an area as a lot of where Eminem was at, but it's still not the greatest area. But Aretha grew up in this area, and so she still shopped this Kmart. And what's neat is she could shop there and people wouldn't bother her. You know what? Just another person. You know, they respected her, and they respected her privacy. So we had this pantyhose called Brown Sugar, and as a company we had decided not to carry brown sugar. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Aretha Franklin wears brown sugar pantyhose, and by God, you better get some brown sugar. So they, oh boy, so you call up the buying office. Hey, is there anything we can do? Well, we don't carry that anymore. It says, no, you're not understanding. Aretha Franklin wants brown sugar pantyhose. What? Aretha Franklin? And so, well, long story short, we eventually were able to work some kind of deal where we had brown sugar pantyhose shipped back into this store in Detroit on 8 Mile, so Aretha Franklin could look good, them legs looking nice, in brown sugar pantyhose. So I never did meet her whenever I'd go down to that store. And this is one of these stores where if you park your car outside, you may not have the wheels when you go up. I mean, seriously, cars lost their wheels. They would come out from shopping, it's jacked up and their wheels are gone. It's like, wow. And we had a guy patrol the parking lot in a car just to make sure that, hey, the car's still around. Tough neighborhood, but it was Aretha Franklin's old neighborhood, and so she still shopped that. And she was still able to shop it and get her brown sugar pantyhose. And that was back in the late aughts, early teens. And when I worked at Detroit Market, eventually I got moved out down to the Caribbean, which is pretty darn nice. So there's my Aretha Franklin story. So let's get into what we've been doing this week. I just finished this book, Buckham. It's the autobiography of Buck Owens. It's done through a lot of tapes and things that he had made. Interesting. You know, I grew up, all I knew Buck Owens was from Hee Haw. I hated Hee Haw. I grew up in rural Nebraska, and they were just like a bunch of boobs. I mean, yuck. And so Buck Owens absolutely was kind of a boob, you know, guy there, and Guess what? He didn't like hee-haw either. You know, he thought it made him look like a bunch of boobs. But he got a lot of money, so he did it. Neat biography. He got the name Buck when he was 3. Their mule, he grew up dirt poor, had a mule. The mule was named Buck. He came in and says, "My name's now Buck." And his dad goes, "All right, your name's now Buck. And if anybody doesn't call you that, they have to go through me." So thus he became Buck. You know, he had 21 #1 hits, 21 of them. And he never received a single award from CMA. Just because he was from California, Bakersfield, and not a Nashville person, and thus they never gave him an award while he had those 21 hits. I got into him maybe about 10 years ago, and you can find his stuff really cheap. The 60s, he did so, I mean, his record company would just put out 3-4 albums a year, seriously. A lot of great stuff. So this was a very interesting biography, autobiography, Buck Owens. All right. So, let's talk some vinyl. First up, Cannonball Adderly in New York. All right, there we go. This is from 1962. Hey, I did some, you know, I never really show the labels. Some people like them, some don't care, but I forget, so I took the plastic sleeves off the ones I'll show. How about that? Riverside. Trying to be organized. So this one here, it was live at the Village Vanguard. Really hadn't recorded anything there, but because he was kind of looking for a cool audience that could kind of groove. Well, he felt this was the right time, and this one brought in Yusef Lateef, and he played gee whiz, all right, this is where you would edit, but I don't do that. Okay, he played sax, oboe, and flute. Yeah, you know, I really think oboe has that kind of jazzy instrument, but that's what he played. And the very first song here, Gemini, starts with a flute solo. And when I put that on, my first thought was Ron Burgundy from Anchorman doing jazz flute. I go, huh? But then it began to swing. This is a nice swinging album, again from the early 60s. You know, with Cannonball, his brother Nate's on here also. Nice pickup. It was fairly inexpensive, and so I'm really happy to get absolutely fantastic shape. Picked up this. This is a repress, I believe, from last year. Ascension from John Coltrane. This is from the Netherlands. Ascension, if you are getting into jazz, not deep into jazz, I would say stay away. This was Coltrane's when he jumped into free jazz. Ornette Coleman had already been doing free jazz 4 or 5 years. So Coltrane says, hey man, I'm going to do some free jazz. And he had been working his way to this. So he had a huge amount of different musicians. And so free jazz really is, there's no rhythm or anything. I mean, you just jump in and you just start playing. And there's 4 different saxmen. Pharoah Sanders played on this. Archie Sepp was on here, which was interesting. So you have your rhythm section. They keep the rhythm going, and then everyone's just blowing their horns all over the place. And for those really into jazz, I mean, free jazz can be really interesting, but you got to be into it. And I mean, if you're just kind of learning about it, that's not how you want to walk down. You may not like jazz. I mean, maybe you'll love it. I don't know, but you don't snap your fingers to it. So I was happy to have that. Okay, this was a nice, I'd show you the Miles Davis at the Black Hawk. Look at that. It was only $2.98. I paid a little bit more. This is sealed. How often do you find that? I haven't opened the seal. I actually do have the full box set on this. It was like a 3-4 CD box set that came out a number of years back. Miles Davis in person, live at the Black Hawk. This was from, I believe, 1961. So John Coltrane had left the group, and so it was kind of in between his next period before Herbie Hancock would come in. So it's just a nice live album. It was kind of interesting. What was neat is they were talking about on here, if Miles Davis set style, and he walked in, he was in a pinstripe suit. Someone goes, pinstripes must be back in. Well, I need to give me some. I mean, that's the power of Miles Davis. This was another one, sealed copy. Someday My Prince Will Come. My local guy, he got in some jazz. I mean, a lot of jazz, and there was sealed stuff. Somebody had some guy way back when they were clearancing out records. He bought everything. He just never opened them. He'd have 3 or 4 copies of stuff on there. So look at that. That one's an Eric $2.98 back then. I paid substantially more, but it's a nice sealed copy of Someday My Prince Will Come. Again, this was from 1961 with Miles Davis. John Coltrane played on 2 songs, but technically it was the very last time he played with the Miles Davis group. So this had Hank Mobley on here, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb. So it was a quintet. Really nice music. Again, it's Miles in transition from the bebop to, again, where he starts, you know, going on with when Herbie Hancock and all that comes in. So I have this on CD. I have an expanded edition of on CD, so I have not opened this yet. Sealed or not, I don't know. You know, there's such drama involved with that. All right, how about some rock? I'm on bad drugs. Look at that. All right, Creedence Clearwater. I've had them on CD, and I finally decided to start buying them on vinyl. Growing up, I wasn't a big Creedence fan because they were from the previous generation of the 60s, and I was the 70s, so I was doing my own thing. It's on the Fantasy label, blue. So I've been picking these up. The channel Fit to Be Tied, he's been doing the same thing. You know, trying to get the fantasy labels on here. So this is Bayou Country, and obviously it has Bayou. They do some longer solos on this one. For instance, Graveyard Train and Keep on Chuggin'. I love that, Keep on Chuggin', baby. And so there they really start going around and play some longer songs. Good Golly Miss Molly is on here. Proud Mary is on this one. So this is, I believe, their second album, 1969, and it's Bayou Country. Also, I had picked up Green River. It's the same fantasy label, so you're not going to see it twice. You've already seen it once. So Green River, and here he had, this way he had Bad Moon Rising. You know, this is a dark album. He's kind of, you know, they were always political, and he wasn't happy with what was going on. He had some other personal issues. I mean, we all know Creedence Clearwater was not a joyful kind of, hey, high five kind of band. So here, you know, he had some deeper stuff. Tombstone Shadow, Bad Moon Rising, Sinister Purpose, Nighttime is the Right Time. I mean, they're all really kind of dark songs. He does shorter songs on here. He doesn't have the long jams on it, but this also came out in 1969, Green River from Creedence Clearwater. Grabbed this. I had a repress of this. This is the Dead Kennedys, and it's Plastic Surgery Disasters on Tentacle Records. They had a lot of, you know, where you could buy some different things on there. I always find that interesting. You know, these singles you could buy back there. You have Dead Kennedys, has Ooskadoo on here, and a variety of other ones. So that's always kind of neat. Oh, everyone's seen that. Alternative Tentacles. I like Dead Kennedys a lot. You know, punk was going. This was like the next wave of punk coming in out of California. Their punk was more like English punk from the mid-70s than the New York avant-garde, because they were much more political. You know, think of the Sex Pistols, the politics that they put into it, and some of the other major punk bands. And Dead Kennedys were the same way. They had something to say, and they're going to say it fast, they're going to say it loud, and they're going to say it quick. This was their third album, Plastic Surgery Disasters. That album creeped me out for years. Absolutely creeped me out on there. Okay, continuing on. Dick Dale. Summer Surf. I don't see a lot of Dick Dale. Look, there's a free record that's not in there, so that means you get it for dirt cheap. You know, he does a little rock, the typical Dick Dale surf stuff. He has some rockabilly in here and a few other things. There's actually vocals on some of these. It's a fun listen to. It's really cheap. It's really kind of crackly, poppy. It's like having a bowl of Rice Krispie treats there, listening to that. But I like Dick Dale, and I rarely see him on vinyl. So I thought, I'll just pick it up. The price is right on there. And someone was nice enough to sign it for me. So if you like surf music, can't go wrong Dick Dale. This was super cheap. I just bought it. Beautiful condition. It was sealed. Played at Jackson Browne, Lawyers in Love. You know, for those in the early 80s, late 70s, Jackson Browne was big. I wasn't a huge Jackson Browne fan, but I've gotten to appreciate him, and if the price is right and you can pick him up generally very, very cheap, I'll buy it. So, I bought it. There you go. Now I got Jackson Browne. This was neat. Macbeth the Great. How about that? Macbeth the Great, King of the Calypso. Or this is called Calypso Holiday. This was made in the mid-50s, actually I think 1959. Calypso was taken off, going big. A lot of it was commercial. This Calypso wasn't as commercial, and Macbeth the Great was out of New York. He came to there from the Caribbean. And so he had a 12-piece Calypso band. This is more, shall we say, pure Calypso. Yeah, it's not made for the masses. He made it for those that really, really loved it and had been making it for a long time. One of the songs, Ugly Woman. All right, so I like Ugly Woman. It's a song where he tells the man, if you're going out to get a wife, make sure she's just uglier than you. Why? Because when you're gone, you never have to worry about someone taking her from you. Wow, profound words of wisdom. There's Bad Whiskey. It's about having some bad whiskey, and there's a variety of other songs. I mean, it was a fun album. I mean, it's more like pure Calypso. So I enjoyed that. This was really neat. I bought this at a place. We have a antique store in Midland where I live, Barry's, and he had this in here. It's Luther Allison. And it's going to be a live one in here tonight. Going to be a live one in here tonight. And this came out in the late 70s. I believe 77 or 79. My apologies. I should generally have that right in my brain. 1979. So, you know, he was a bluesman. He's in the 50s, 60s, and he played guitar for a number of other people, but he had a hard time getting a record contract. Even Motown signed him and only did a couple singles. He wound up going to France, and he became really big over in Europe playing blues. Well, he came back and he lived in Peoria, Illinois for a while. I don't know if you've ever been to Peoria, Illinois, but not a lot going on. If you live in Peoria, I apologize for that, but I used to have to go there to work and that. So he did this live blues album in Peoria, Illinois, and this thing's on fire. It's incendiary, light a match. What great guitar playing. Fantastic. Totally enjoyed it. I mean, it's just one of those that you can just crank up and go. So, great blues from Luther Allison. He wound up going back to France. He died of cancer eventually. But, you know what? He did well in Europe, so good for him. But this was from his live performance in Peoria, Illinois. All right, Skiffle. Skiffle. Can you believe I don't own any Skiffle? I'm sure everyone has Skiffle. Well, I now have Lonnie Donegan. Okay. Hey, you know what? Sorry for a minute. I took the thing I was supposed to show you what that label looked like. See, I even forgot. Rumble Records. Alright, look at that. I take the plastic off to show you what the label is, and I still can't remember to show you the freaking labels. Unbelievable. Man. That Calypso King was Time. That one's like no big deal, unless maybe that's what you really like. So, alright. So, back to Lonnie Donegan. King of the Skiffle, and this guy really was. You know, Skiffle, it's a cross between jazz, blues, folk. It began, really, you could put its roots back in the early 1900s in the United States. Now, when you think of jug bands were basically kind of a skiffle type band. It's taken a variety of instruments such as washboard and that and start playing it. Well, it became big back in the 50s in England, and so many people began doing it. When you think of your 60s rock performers, many of them started as skiffle bands. John Lennon, the Quarrymen, it was a skiffle band. Mick Jagger loved skiffle. All these guys, you read the books, they love skiffle. And this is one of the main guys. This is Lonnie Donegan. And it is on Dot Records. Dang, I thought I had these things prepared better. Okay. Oh, little dot, little glare. All right, so this had one of, you know, he had tons of hits in England, and he only had a couple here in the United States. But one of them was, does your chewing gum lose the flavor on the bedpost overnight? This thing's in bad shape, by the way. I got it for super cheap, but I mean, it's splitting down there on the bottom. It needs massive surgery. All right, so does your chewing gum lose the flavor on the bedpost overnight? Does your chewing gum lose the flavor on the bedpost overnight? Does your mother tell you not to chew it so you swallow it in spite? There we go. That's the main chorus on that. Does your chewing gum lose the flavor? I actually remember that hearing that song. I was born in 1959 when this came out, but neat. I now own Skiffle. Honestly, I did not have any skiffle, so I was kind of happy to see that. All right, the rest are some really inexpensive bluegrass finds I found. My record store guy got in a ton of bluegrass. Doesn't normally carry it, but he did. We'll go quickly. The Kentucky Gentleman. This is from the early 70s. It has an autograph. Look at that. It says, "Thank you, Dave and Carol and Harold Russell. Many thanks from Marvin Davis." Yes, Marvin Davis. Most of you know Marvin Davis as a guy that played an instrument in a bluegrass band. All right, I don't know Marvin Davis, but he does play on this, and he did sign that album for them. So that was neat. This is from the very early 80s bluegrass band. And it's on a, what's called a Jewel record album. Jesus Christ, crickets. Come on, get out of there. All right. I think that's why I don't show labels. I can't get them out. I can't get them back in. And I spend about 1 hour trying to do it all. All right. So, just fun bluegrass. Here was another bluegrass. Then we have the Nashville Travelers. Look at those three on there. So that is Jack Lynch and the Nashville Travelers. And look, it's autographed. And this one says, "It's people like you that make people like us love you all." And that's signed by Terry Selby. So Terry is one of these people in here. So wasn't that nice of him? I think it is interesting just to see these couple autographs on there, you know. I had, you know, this, it's autographed. Someday someone's going to go, why did they do that? So there you go. Nashville Travelers. It's pretty good bluegrass, pretty fast, isn't real folky. Got this Doug Kershaw, just really bad condition, but the vinyl was good. Spanish moss on here. Doug Kershaw plays a lot of Cajun, so his folk is based more down in Louisiana, as you can see, kind of a swamp bluegrass, shall we say. Some of his stuff I don't like as much. This was really good because it was more Cajun, rootsy. You know, he's a fiddle player. That's not a violin, damn it. That's a fiddle. Get it right. And so, good album. 1970. Then we had this. This is from David Grissom. This came 1986, I believe. This is on Rounder Records. All right. I like that artwork on there. I think that's really kind of neat. Much more folk-based. Yeah, these are really beat up. They got them so cheap. There's been water, moisture, and that, so a lot of the albums were messed up. But for the most part, the vinyl was very, very good on them. So this is, again, bluegrass, but more on the folk vein, a little more quieter. We had Mike Aldridge and Old Dog. I just bought that because I like the thing. It said Old Dog. Yep, that's how I look at things on there. This was made 1977. Again, pretty good. This was a great bluegrass outfit. They really got down on it. Good, quick, you know, nice banjo, fiddle, upright bass, mandolin. So good stuff there from these guys. And this came off Flying Fish Records. I love the name of that, Flying Fish Records. Do a lot of folk stuff. We had Larry Sparks, Dark Hollow. This is from the 80s. This is out of a Cincinnati label. So a lot of this is more local down in Kentucky, West Virginia area, the states on here on Rebel. And not as good as some of the other stuff. The 80s, the bluegrass began to kind of, I thought, get watered down. A little more slick, commercialized, shall we say, but it was went super cheap, who cares. And then we have Night Run, and here's another one. This one, you can see the water damage. I think this was, see this guy here? That's John Hickman. I think this was his girlfriend's album, and he broke up with her, or his wife, because notice him here, and notice him on the back. I mean, someone ripped him right out. His picture's taken out. I'm pretty sure his girlfriend owned this, and he pissed her off, and so thus defaced him totally. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So Night Run, again, bluegrass. I felt it was a little too slick, but it's still fun. I like bluegrass. I think it's an interesting bunch of music. All right, that's what I got this week on here. Appreciate again you listening. I have some other videos I need to do today, but I wanted to make sure I show you the new vinyl finds. So a lot of different things. Got a story on Aretha Franklin, true story, jazz going on, and some fun finds. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great week. I know I plan on it, and I think I'm going to try and cut back on some of the vinyl buying right now because Mama wants a new bathroom. All right, everyone. Have yourself a great week, and thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.